Welcome, one and all, back to the Hurdle Podcast. Got a little college football podcast get out to y'all before our great weekend of football starts. Of course, if you're just tuning in for the first time, our college football episodes usually look like Montana State, which is our current. I don't want to say our current university. We're not yet. I just can't say on the water. So some Montana State football. Going to recap the thrashing of Weber State. Kind of preview the Portland State game that's coming up this Saturday, and then kind of touch on some of the big things happening in the Big Sky because there was a lot of shakeup there. And then really there hasn't been a ton of bigger college football games to really discuss, so we'll kind of touch on a few of those. But I feel like this one's mainly going to be a Montana State Big Sky kind of podcast. So let's start the big one. Montana State goes down to Weber State and win 40-0.
Yeah.
I think it's the first shutout since 16?
Yeah.
2016, 2018. Super fun to watch.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, it was a fun game to be out for sure. The atmosphere from the Cats fans was electric. We traveled great. I think one of the bigger things I kind of just want to touch on is I think our offense is finally hitting that stride. They looked great against the Weber defense that's been fairly well, and our defense kind of shut down anything their offense wanted to do.
Yeah, I think for me this was all about the defense. We are easily, I think, right now the best defense in not only in the Big Sky but in the FCS. I know you can look at that SDSU game and that final 2-play drive and be like, there's still things you can pick away at, but after last year where our defense was honestly fairly struggling through the first 5 or 6 weeks, and they really picked it up once we got the cold weather in our favor. They're clicking on all cylinders this year. So just to have that confidence that your team is always going to be in it because of how good your defense is, I think it's super impressive. And then 40-0 against Weber, and Weber it's not a trend that you really ever see. I think it's a rarity. So normally it ends up being, like we said in the preview, it normally ends up being 5, 8, 10 points, and for it to just be this kind of just outright thrashing that it was, I think is a big statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other big thing we should touch on, at least because we've talked about this off camera, is do you ride with the hot hand right now in Sean Chambers at quarterback, or do you try to throw Tommy Malott back in? Because obviously I think this offense is a little more electric when Tommy's in. However, I think Sean's got this team rolling on his back right now. He ran well. He was throwing the ball well. The offense looked smooth. So I guess that's kind of the only big question mark for the Bobcats going into these next couple of weeks of conference play.
Yeah, I'd still play Tommy. Tommy's the guy, and it's really nice. It's a luxury to have a high quality backup quarterback. Especially when he doesn't play like a backup quarterback, right? You kind of see it in the league, in the NFL the past couple of years, and just the QBs kind of just going down left and right, and being able to have a guy that can come in there and you can still feel confident that'll get you wins, and you can still contend, is a huge plus. And you can run the same style offense that we do with Tommy. So Tommy's game is a little more elusive. It's a little more agile, and we run a little heavier and a little more ground pound with some multiple tight end sets and things like that with Sean in the game. So I think I like when both of them are healthy because it gives that nice like thunder lightning balance.
Big cat, little cat.
Yeah, exactly. But I would still roll with Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely. But a huge win for the Cats going down to Weber and shutting out the Wildcats. Now we're going to kind of jump to previewing the Portland State matchup this week. And Portland State kind of has been the tale of two teams. They lose 81-0 to Oregon. Yeah. And then beat Bishop Sycamore pretty much 91-0 in North American. Yeah. North American. Surprisingly, last year was their first year. They went 3-8.
Yeah.
Can't say they're doing that this year, but Portland State's offense has looked very well, so I think that's going to be kind of fun to watch them this week.
Yeah, and they just come off 38-point win against Cal Poly, which Cal Poly's kind of been the bottom tier of the conference the past half decade or so. Yeah. So really for a while, and they're not known for their football program at all. So they won a game they should win. There's really no feel for this team. I mean, going into the game, spread's 26.5. They played Oregon, who's really a top 10 team in the nation right now. and they played North American, who
And
I've never heard
and they
of,
played in Wyoming in between.
and they played Wyoming. So they're 2-2. They haven't beat anyone super impressive. They haven't challenged anyone really impressive. So that doesn't really give me any reason to think that this game's gonna be with anything within double digits, even at halftime. Spread's 26.5. I'd expect us to cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will be another week. It's gonna all depend on, I think, what we bring out offensively.
play
in
Tommy.
quarterback. Yeah, exactly. I don't think I'd play Tommy this week.
I wouldn't play him next week either.
Next week, I believe we're on a bye.
Cal Poly.
No, we're on a bye
Oh,
next
bye
week.
next, and then Cal
And then
Poly.
Cal Poly.
Yeah.
So give him maybe these 2 weeks, see how he looks against Cal Poly, maybe.
Well, I don't even know why you play him.
But at some point you got to. So maybe that's the game you tune him up for. I don't think it's the tune-up game. But yeah, I don't expect much out of Portland State. They haven't played defense anything close to ours other than Oregon. Like, okay. But like,
Which I don't even know if they scored in that game.
I think it was 81-7.
Game of 6, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But no, I think it'll be a good showing for the Cats again. I think it'll be kind of similar to when they played Stetson to start the year out as the second home game for Gold Rush. I think it'll be kind of something similar to that. You might see a lot more backups in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I don't expect this one to be relatively close either. I think we've talked about this before, and like we'll talk about the game where that kind of maybe, for me at least, like kind of showed that's not always that necessarily. I think 26.5 is always aggressive, but
Yeah.
this is probably one of the best. This is one of the top 3 teams in the FCS playing a team that just can never find
In the
its
bottom
way.
half of their
Yeah.
conference, yeah.
So
Should be a
yeah,
should be a round.
yeah, it should be a wrap. So that's the hope for the Bobcats, at least going into this one. So now let's kind of jump to the division, not Division 1. Let's go Big Sky still.
Yeah.
So lots of upsets. So I know we've highlighted the Weber State win, but
Yeah.
Idaho beats Sacramento State.
After Sac State beat Stanford,
Yeah.
literally the following week. So
What a polar 180 kind of turn there.
Yeah, just
for
big
the Hornets.
twist. Yeah, big twist for Sac State. I didn't get to watch much of this game. I got to watch a little bit of the Stanford game, and they honestly looked fairly impressive. So for them to kind of just cruise into this game and kind of get bullied for most of it, Idaho never did not have the lead in this game. So I got tied with 4 minutes left in the fourth. And then of course the 6 point at the end on the fumble when Sac State tried to get something done. After the supposed game winner. Really close game. Idaho's honestly one of the top teams in the conference this year. They've looked really impressive so far. They play Eastern in Cheney this week, so that's going to be a huge matchup for them. These are kind of the conference defining matchups that you look for when it comes to champ week and who's going to play who and how the matchups are going to play out. These are the ones that you want to look at. So Sac State having a loss here is huge for Montana State to win the Big Sky, which means it's huge for top 4 seeding. Because if you win your conference, it basically locks you into the top 4, especially if you win a conference as tough as ours in the FCS. So it's huge for playoff seeding, and it's huge for Sac State to be 3-1, and then hopefully we each have 1 loss going into that game. But Sac State's is against Idaho, ours is against the number 1 team in the FCS.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll touch on that one. SDSU and NDSU play this week.
Yeah.
Very early in the year. So I would expect if South Dakota State kind of does what we expect and kind of just bulldoze North Dakota State. Look for those Bobcats to be number 2 in the power rankings. I
They
think.
definitely could be.
And then the other one, another surprise, winless Northern Arizona beats that team to the northwest of us. Like, I could not be happier. The Grizz lose to a Buns Northern Arizona team at Northern Arizona, and the Grizz defense looks so bad.
Yeah,
Their defense is bad.
I would say their offense looked worse. They just couldn't convert on any third down. Bunch of killer penalties, especially on key drives in the third quarter there when Northern Arizona was just really struggling to kind of just retain the lead, and Montana just could never capitalize on any of those opportunities. So yeah, really something goes on in that dome that's just weird every year, because we had that close game with them last year. That was like a 3-point game, and just crazy plays were happening all over the field. This one wasn't nearly as crazy, but it was kind of just like a really dominant showing from a winless Northern Arizona team coming into the game. So if this shows any signs, Montana's really gonna have to start tightening some screws before Brollwell.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a very similar in-conference schedule to us. So
Yep.
it'll be good tells every week when like they either play a team before us. It's kind of like, all right, like when they play Utah Tech, we're like, oh man, we beat them by like 15 more points. Like that makes us look very good. That's kind of what you do, especially when you look forward to that rivalry game at the end of the year. All right, should we talk more big boy football?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little more big boy football. So last week, let's start Florida State Clemson. Clemson keeps it very close against Jordan Travis and the Seminoles in Death Valley and took it to overtime. And Florida State kind of went down the first OT drive, scored very quickly. And then Clemson just looks discombobulated on their opportunity and ultimately cost them the game.
I mean, Clemson should have won the game. They had the freaking 29-yarder at the end of regulation to win the game. And you have to make that kick. It's as simple as that. When you're playing the number 4 team in the nation, those are opportunities you cannot miss.
Especially with
Clemson, especially with Clemson losing to Duke earlier in the year, who's proven themselves to be a ranked team. We're going to talk about them in a second. Riley Leonard over there. So, honestly, the Duke loss doesn't look as bad if you go in and if you beat Florida State at home, who's the number 4 team in the country. They have CFP hopes. So, yeah, really tough loss for Clemson. This is back-to-back weeks where Florida State should have lost both games. Boston College by 2 last week, should have lost that game, should have lost this game. And Clemson, I have not been impressed. As a top 4 team in the nation, there's a reason the spread was 2.5 coming into the game. So, as of right now, I would not have Florida State as a top 4 team in the nation.
Yep.
We'll see what happens when
Technically,
the seeding,
right?
technically are 5 right now, but so they drop 1, but just with how the seeding is going to be breaking down, it's going to be really tight for those last 2 or 3 spots, or 2 spots, I should say, in CFP. And Florida State has 2 barely squeaked out wins against unranked teams. That doesn't look great on your resume.
Exactly, and they're gonna have a bye this week, so they really can't show anything coming off that Clemson win. And then they'll have VTech in 2 weeks, so that can always get interesting. With Virginia Tech, they always keep games really close. Yeah, another in-conference game. Speaking of in-conference, my conference. So Coach out of his prime. Oregon could have put 60 on the Buffaloes and kind of just halted when they were up 36. Not a great showing from the Buffalo, specifically on the one part of the team that I think we both knew coming in wasn't going to be good. Their defense does not look great, especially not having Travis Hunter out there.
Yeah, and you lose Travis Hunter, number 1 corner in the nation, top receiver on your team, and then you kind of go in there. But my takeaway was Colorado's O-line was absolutely putrid.
Yeah,
and Oregon's front 7 dominated that entire game. Bo Nix had all the time in the world to throw.
That was one of the better games I've seen Bo Nix play.
And you could tell he looked comfortable in the pocket. He was confident making all his throws. They converted about every 3rd down you can think of if they ever really even got to 3rd down. So it was kind of just an all-around thrashing. When you kind of take away Travis Hunter, you don't really have that lockdown corner. You don't have a guy like how the Packers run it, where they get a scheme around Jair and they let Jair play shadow coverage all the time. That's kind of how they were running it with Travis Hunter. They're letting Travis play a lot of man-on-man, or man-to-man, letting Shiloh play a lot of man-to-man, and kind of just roaming. You can't do that against the top teams in the nation. So Oregon took advantage of every single aspect up front, their speed, their athleticism. They dominate on the edges. Every facet of the game went Oregon's way.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to be super fun, like we were kind of talking about last week. Like all these Pac-12 teams are starting to play each other.
Yeah.
They're going to start beating up on each other.
Yep.
And hopefully one of them is standing there at the end to maybe make a CFP run. After that, I mean, it could be an Oregon. It's probably going to be a USC or an Oregon, or possibly a Washington, the way Penix is playing right now. So yeah, very impressive win for the Ducks. The matchup of the Pac-2s. Oregon State, Washington State. The score looks close, but really Washington State kind of dominated this game. It felt like, at least the parts I watched. Yeah, I think Oregon State's a very good team, and as we're recording this, they're kicking the shit out of Utah. So I'm not going to talk any sort of way about the Oregon Beavers right now, because the only thing I would say is when the showing we've seen, a good quarterback last week and two not good quarterbacks this week, has really shown what their defense is. Because what's his name? Is it Cam Ward?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cam Ward lit them up.
Yep.
404.
4 tuds.
Yeah, 4 tuds, no picks. He looked electric, so it does concern me when they later in the year will play a Shedeur Sanders, a Caleb Williams if they pull USC, but a Penix especially, and a Bo Nix in Oregon.
Yeah. I've been really impressed with Washington State so far. 4-0 on the year. They've won both the big games. Granted, they've gotten both the big games at home.
Yeah,
Wisconsin being the other one, if I remember correctly. And Cameron Ward's playing like a top 3 quarterback in college football right now. He's been absolutely lights out. He doesn't make mistakes, which is, I think, a really big thing because Washington State's defense is not that good.
No.
And you kind of look at the game timeline. They're up 21, 5 minutes left in the third quarter, and then, DJ Ukulele and this offense kind of just starts clawing their way back in. It's not because the offense is making a ton of mistakes. Just they just couldn't get any momentum going, picking off. It's hard to just score relentlessly for the entire game. And when your defense can't get stops, it's really a lot on your offense. We've seen it with USC, especially against the big schools like the Utahs, and when they play those big games later in the year, their defense just can't get a stop for their offense to keep pace, as electric as their offense has been the last few years. And that's kind of how Washington State is this year. Cameron Ward is he's disgusting. He's probably gonna be a Heisman finalist. He's top 3 in the running right now. So I'm really excited about what Washington State's running up there. They're running a pro-style offense with an electric quarterback and some really good receivers, and the Apple Cup this year is going to be insane.
Yeah, I was going to say, any game now that Washington State's playing, I think this year in the Pac-12 is going to be
must watch.
Must watch Pac-12 after dark football.
Yeah,
for sure.
A lot of high scores.
And then the next really big one from last week, the Ohio State Notre Dame game. Very slow game until the second half, it felt like. And then you kind of started to see some cracks in the defenses. And ultimately, that's kind of what lost Notre Dame this game when you only have 10 guys on the field. Kind of a miscue on back-to-back plays. Like, you just can't have that in the goal line, especially against Ohio State. I know they're not the Ohio State of old of, like, having these dominant quarterbacks, but they still have one of the better teams in the country.
Yeah, even though their offense wasn't that good, they still should have won this game. There's no excuses for the mistakes that they made on the final drive. I mean, to give up a touchdown with 1 second left, and how well your defense had been playing the entire game. These are games you have to win against the top teams in the country. And Ohio State's talent kind of fleshed itself out a little more later into the game. But this is a game Notre Dame should have won with, honestly, relative ease. And for Ohio State to come out with a win here, I think says a lot about Ohio State and kind of the mentality of that team. But I honestly think it says more about Notre Dame and a missed opportunity here. But they have a nice bounce back spot to kind of rejuvenate some momentum here coming into this Duke game with College Game Day. So
yeah, exactly. And I think this is if Notre Dame, Jesus. if Notre Dame's able to get this game, especially at home in South Bend, that kind of just, for me at least, looking at the rest of their schedule down there, especially after this Duke game, like that sets them up. That puts them into the top 4. A win against an Ohio State and a win against Duke, who are both ranked as a team that is playing in a non-conference.
Yeah,
these are the games you got to get.
Mm-hmm.
And they fell short, so you can pretty much kiss the CFP for them. Probably goodbye, unless there's a lot of shakeup. Yeah, unless there's a lot of shakeup in college football. Let's jump to this week.
Yep.
Not a ton of interesting games, honestly. The Bussin' Bowl with Michigan, Nebraska. Shout out Bussin' with the boys. But really, there's not a ton of. I mean, LSU, Ole Miss is fine, but the two we kind of wanted to touch on. I mean, they're still the biggest name in college football right now, so we're going to talk about them because they're playing probably the best player in college football, Caleb Williams, and that's USC going to Boulder to take on the Buffaloes.
Yeah.
Status for Travis Hunter still up in the air. He wants to play. I'm sure as hell ain't going to let him play, but that's something to keep in mind. Just kind of going into this game. But again, 21.5 for USC in this one. I mean,
it should be higher.
It really should be. I feel like USC is a much better complete team than an Oregon. I would say Oregon's defense is head and shoulders better than USC's, but USC's offense is just
they're running on all cylinders right now. And when you look at their offense, it's just those. If Dan Lanning's offense can do what it did against Colorado without Travis Hunter, why wouldn't Lincoln Riley put up damn near 60 in this game? Granted they're going on the road, but I don't think Caleb Williams gives a damn. So
Yeah, this could get ugly early again,
Yeah,
just like the Oregon game.
yeah, just with the speed and the electricity of this USC team, how fast they are. It looks like I've watched them play a couple of games. Granted, they were playing like Stanford and teams like that, but it's like they look so much faster than everyone else on the field, and they play at such a rampant pace that it's really hard for defenses to keep up and stay energized to guard these receivers who are just naturally running 4-3-2, 4-3-3, just on crossers, just streaking the field in every which way imaginable. So I think USC is going to run rampant in this game. But I think what's really is going to tell the tale of this game, if it stays within the 3 touchdowns, is can Colorado's front line hold up that line to block Shedeur, because Shedeur got sacked, I believe, 8 times in the Oregon game.
I believe was right.
And it was just brutal to watch. He didn't have any time to make any reads or any decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that changing against USC at all, but maybe you could see Colorado's front hold a little tighter, and Dion maybe block more guys, get some double team advantages. That way his kid has more time to make plays that can legitimize this offense.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's going to be fun to see how Dion does bounce back. Because I don't think he lost to Jackson State, did he? He might have lost once or twice, but he never got blown out. I can tell you that. So it's going to be interesting to see his coaching philosophy and kind of strategy coming into a bounce back.
Absolutely,
for sure. Especially when you're playing the best quarterback in college football right now.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame Duke game day going to Notre Dame Duke down in Durham, I believe, right?
Yep.
It's Durham.
In Durham.
For a school that's known as a basketball school, they're good offensively for football right now.
Yeah, Duke's really good, in all honesty. I mean, Clemson's got one of the better defenses really in the nation. And Riley Leonard in this offense, they like to run that pro style read options. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see what Marcus Freeman draws up on the board there, and how they're going to shut down Riley Leonard, because he's the key to this offense. If you can shut down his rushing attack, he's not an elite passer by any means. I say he's a slightly above average passer. And the numbers would tell you the same thing. I mean,
he's only thrown 2 touchdowns.
He's only got 2 passing touchdowns on the year. So they're a heavier ground and pound team. I think that's ND's strength, is their run defense. You saw that, even though Travion Henderson had the 63-yard rushing touchdown in the Ohio State game. That was really the only mistake they made, besides having only 10 guys on the field in the last 2 plays. That's really the only mistake they made all game. So ND's bread and butter is still their defense. And Sam Hartman is just so much of a better quarterback than what they've had the past half decade. Really since Ian Book, and he wasn't that great. So
fine.
He was an NFL talent. But Sam Hartman, at least for college, is a much better player in my opinion. Especially coming off that air raid offense at Wake Forest, where he's throwing the ball 55, 60 times a game. And now you're not forcing him to make those decisions anymore. You can play a cleaner game of football. So I kind of expect ND to run rampant in this game.
Yeah,
exactly. 5.5.
Yeah, exactly. I think the 5.5 is I think low for this game. I could see ND winning by double digits just because of, I think comparatively, when you look at the quarterback play, Sam Hartman is just such a better thrower of the football, and he has more weapons at his disposal, I feel like, than Duke does. And really, I mean, Duke looked fine defensively, but that was when Clemson probably had the worst Clemson football game offensively we've probably ever watched.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to take away from their defense specifically. I guess it'd be a good showing for Duke of what they are. If they can find a way to pull an upset here, then you can start talking, them probably playing Florida State for the ACC championship game later in the year. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I still like Notre Dame. I really do. I think they're still a very good football team. Is that going to put them into the top 4? Probably not. But I still think this is probably one of the better Notre Dame teams that we've seen in a long time, specifically on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a great point there, because one of the things I've been maybe not more situation aware about is how much does that Clemson game really mean? because I mean we just talked about it with Florida State,
Mhm.
and they barely beat Clemson in overtime, and then it's like Duke walks out there and beats
And
the ever living
fumbles.
crap out of Clemson week one. The Grants week one, Duke's at home, and they kind of had not an unsuspecting offense because Leonard's been there for a while now, but kind of took us by surprise. And when you have that shock value, it kind of just set Clemson aback. So I don't know how much weight to put in that game because I don't believe they've really played much of anyone since. So I mean, they drew UConn, who's unranked, 41-7, Northwestern 14-38, Lafayette 42-7. They
Yeah.
haven't played anyone.
Yeah, frankly, no one.
Literally no one. And
And that stays kind of consistent.
and so it's gonna be a weird feel out, I think, for the first few drives. And maybe ND takes advantage of it, but I don't know if I'm just being unaware to what Duke has been doing and how much that Clemson game actually means, but I feel like that Clemson game is being overvalued, but I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I think, it's gonna show on Saturday for sure. I think this is a good matchup. Just with what we have seen from both these teams, it's just I feel like just Notre Dame is going to probably overpower them when the game like it would probably be close to the first half, but really in the second half, I think you'll see Notre Dame's defense be more aggressive. They'll attack more, especially if they have the lead in the second half for sure. Any other games you want to touch on? I know Kansas, Texas plays. Texas has been kind of quietly number 3. They
Dominated Bama and haven't really heard from them.
Yeah, Wyoming gave them a little bit of a game until about halfway through the fourth quarter. So Texas is just still sitting there. Kansas is a good football team. I think they could. I'm not saying Texas is on upset alert, but
Georgia was started out slow last week.
yeah, they're playing UAB.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So a lot of these bigger dogs are starting out kind of slow, but I mean they do figure it out. So it's gonna be interesting to see how some of those teams are gonna adjust, especially now getting into more conference play.
I know Georgia's also been missing a couple guys, so due to injury.
They got Auburn.
Yeah, they got Auburn this week. I believe it's 14 and a half.
14 and a half.
So that's gonna be an interesting game. I think Georgia should kind of just dominate them defensively.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find the injuries. I mean, they still got Brock Bowers. Carson Beck's honestly played really good football so far. So this should be Georgia the whole way in this Auburn game. And when you have a top 5 pick, most likely in the draft, that's a tight end. They use them in such versatile ways. It's really hard to stop. Damn, I can't find the freaking injury report on who the receiver is. Yeah, I mean, just Georgia weapons and their historic dominance defensively should win them this game.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I didn't tell Bailey we were gonna do, and we've talked about it in our NFL ones. We placed a little parlay. For college football. So
would you want me to name it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I can't remember them off the top of my head. I know you do.
USC minus 20.5. Georgia minus 13.5 on the road at Auburn. Michigan is 20.5. The line's 18 there. They're at Nebraska. I'm just not impressed with Nebraska so far.
Nope.
They had that Minnesota game, and I've kind of been turned off since, even though they've won back-to-back games following their 2 losses. But Louisiana Tech, Northern Illinois, and they barely beat those teams. Like 24 Northern Illinois, 14 to Louisiana Tech, and now they drop Harbaugh coming back, Blake Corum, JJ McCarthy. They're gonna dominate those guys, I think. So I think they're kind of gonna run roughshod over them. Trying to see Notre Dame minus 3.5, and then my Heisman favorite right now, and Michael Penix Jr. in Washington minus 17.5 or 16.5, I believe was the line we took there. So that was 5 to 120.
Nice. Well, hell yeah! Getting a little. We're dipping our toes into college football betting. Usually we don't, but the NFL slate, there was none that we were all like, yeah, let's bet on that, or nothing that would make it worthwhile to bet on.
Yeah.
So we're dipping our toes in college football this week, and we're arguably picking the 5 best teams in college football to win.
Yeah, you get the best quarterbacks and the best teams in America playing unranked teams, and you just gotta play your marks right.
Exactly. Well, there you go.
Yeah, so that's gonna do it for this episode. College football done. We're gonna have a playoff. Once the Mariners, Astros, Rangers hold debacle gets settled.
When the dust settles.
Yeah, which is gonna be here shortly at the start of October. We're gonna have an auction draft, and then we're gonna have or redo the auction draft, and then we're going to have a playoff kind of preview, overlook, and then we're gonna go through the bracket, pick our teams, do all that jazz. So that's baseball, and then football, college football once a week, with MSU this entire episode. Hopefully you're still watching. And then NFL recap and picks once a week. That's really about it as of what we got going with the Hurdle podcast. We are gonna have, I think we're gonna do a short pod on the Damian Lillard Bucks trade. If we don't do a reel, we'll do a shorter pod. We'll bring Avery on for that. Otherwise, that's it. So everything Hurdle Podcast, follow the Instagram at Hurdle Podcast, HRDL Podcast. Spotify if you just want the audio version. Hurdle Sports, mine and Logan's name is on that. And then yeah, subscribe, like the channel. I think that's it.
I think that's it. Give us some.
Yeah, what's your comment?
Comment question. If you were starting an NFL team, would you rather have right now Caleb Williams or Michael Penix?
Good one.
I like that one.
I like that one too. All right, so answer that question in the comments. That's it. Bailey, Logan, we're out, guys. Peace.